I'm going to spend less than 30 minutes chatting about the following items. Just the steps that I encourage people to take whenever they're figuring out the process of the nonprofit or government internship or job search. I'm going to, at the end, address some of the suggestions we have for steps to take in 2020, specifically right now, given what's going on. But some of the broad strokes about how to approach this and the broad strokes in terms of the resources we have available still stand. And we've been seeing stuff in the last 4 or 5 weeks that opportunities are still available and out there. And I'll get into detail towards the end about how to approach, how to find some of those and approach getting some of those opportunities. But before I jumped into the 2020 part, it's more the overview of this kind of search. So again, those are the steps I'm going to navigate through. Before I jump in, does figuring out what you want to do, searching for postings and opportunities, making target list, networking, and tips for navigating uncertain times, does that cover what everybody's looking for? Anybody want to add into the chat other things you were hoping I would cover or other questions you were hoping I would answer? Okay, I'll just keep going for the moment. First things first, unprecedented times. And if you might not feel like you're either literally physically able, financially able, emotionally able to engage in the job and internship search right now. And I just want to say that is, if that's the case, that's absolutely valid, and it's okay to take a breath, take a few minutes, get used to the new normal before you jump in. It's very possible that even following the suggestions that I'm going to describe, that not a lot of progress will happen in the next few weeks. But because we know it, because I'm saying it's okay, and if you don't want to jump in, I'm also going to include some resources and ideas for things you can do if you don't identify an internship or a job. But I just want to communicate to you that you need to get, you need to feel right and get yourself together before you can jump into this stuff. And but when you are ready to jump into this stuff, we're ready to help you. Okay, so let's start a little bit just with what typically Brown students do. I like to emphasize for students interested in nonprofit and policy work that they're not alone. You can see a significant chunk of the classes 2012 to 2018 choose first jobs in nonprofit and government work. These percentages here are the percentages of people in nonprofit work. These percentages of here, people in government. So it's a pretty big chunk, bigger than you might expect. You're not alone if that's the kind of stuff that interests you. The first step we always encourage you to take in doing this stuff is not to just apply to what's out there, but to figure out more about yourself and what you want to do. I'm including a couple of pages with the kinds of questions you might get asked in a counseling appointment, the kind of categories of things that you might think about to help you figure out what you want to do. I'm not going to walk through all of these, obviously, but I think this is a good resource, a good thing to look over if you're struggling trying to figure out what kinds of things you're interested in and what kinds of things to target. I strongly encourage making an appointment with one of our career counselors. You can just log into Handshake, schedule a Zoom call for 30 minutes anytime the rest of this week and going forward. We do have times available, and figuring that part out first. If you're just applying to the things that are out there, you're going to come up with a bit of a more scattergun approach. You're not going to be as efficient with your time, and when you do get opportunities, they're not going to be as, they're not going to be the ones that interest you as much as you might hope. Taking this step first and knowing that even in the age of COVID-19, it's okay to figure out the things you want first before just applying to the things that exist. Really key point. Again, these 3 or so pages, figuring out what you want to do, some of the key questions you can ask about community work, and some of exploring what's out there are ways to begin thinking about that. I strongly recommend a conversation with a counselor. And then searching for postings and opportunities at Brown. So I went in and I just did a quick check yesterday. And in Brown Connect right now, if I go into Brown Connect and search, there's 511 positions that show up if I do just a blanket search for the keyword policy. Now, those of you who've used Brown Connect know that that is a keyword search. It's not like there's a super smart algorithm going on, and those are all definitely the policy jobs you want, but a significant number of them are. So there are still opportunities being posted. As far as jobs, for those of you who are seniors, using the industry search function in Handshake, I found 40 jobs in politics, 38 with NGOs, 48 with government, 403 with nonprofit and other. And then there's also some local volunteer and internship opportunities on Brown Engage. And again, you can see some of the jobs in Handshake in some of those categories. The message here is these two sources, Brown Connect and Handshake, are the low-hanging fruit of opportunities. Better than low-hanging fruit. They are the tip of the iceberg of opportunities. They are where employers who are targeting Brown students post opportunities. So just keep in mind, I'm using this as an example that there's still stuff out there, but all of the other websites I'm going to show you a little bit later, including the big search engines, Idealist, Indeed, LinkedIn, there's still opportunities that are being posted, and there's still opportunities that are being posted in nonprofit and policy work. I saw that Bella had a quick question. Are there full-time opportunities on Brown Connect 2? The answer is no. Check Handshake for the full-time opportunities. Brown Connect is pulling all of the internship opportunities from Handshake and putting them in, letting you search them in Brown Connect, but all of the jobs will be in Handshake. A few other resources that are, I included these because we'll send the PowerPoint along for those of you who are first year, sophomore, juniors. You might want this in future years. Just some of the summer and winter opportunities. Those of you who are not seniors, you can think about our Careers in the Common Good internships come the fall, but I'm not going to go too much into those right now. And then we have some other opportunities, career fairs and things. There's still some funding. There's still funding opportunities left for nonprofit, low-paid, unpaid internships this summer. The next and final link deadline is April 29th. And you can still apply by then for funding for low-paid and unpaid internships. If you started an application already, I encourage you to get it done this week. The quicker, the better. But by April 29th for sure. There's still some funding for internships available. And in particular, I think that could be really compelling to nonprofit employers to persuade them to help create opportunities for you. So I strongly encourage you to, keep plugging away at those, still funding for that available. All right. I mentioned earlier that one of the key things we suggest, even before you just apply for what's out there, you just apply for the things I described, the tip of the iceberg things, that you make a list of entities and organizations that might interest you. And there's a lot of ways you might interest you separate from who's posting jobs or internships. That's because a lot of what we're going to suggest, you'll see in a bit, is reaching out to alumni and having conversations to help turn up opportunities in the invisible job network. We've been hearing still that alumni are responding to informational interview requests and others, so we're going to strongly recommend that. Here's some resources to help you develop your target list of employers, again, separate from just the ones that are currently posting opportunities. The bottom two in particular, the career field resources pages on the Career Lab website, and the list of first jobs for the classes of 2012 through 2018 in nonprofit and government work. So the career field resources, 107 different career fields. Each of those different career fields, there's a set of um, information about that particular career field, alumni that you might look up on Brown Connect, and then lists of employers and job and internship postings. That's a great way to begin helping you figure out the kinds of employers you might target. The spreadsheet that you'll get when you click on this first jobs for the classes of 2012 through 2018 is literally just an Excel spreadsheet that has the data from those years that shows you where students went for their first job after graduation in nonprofit and government work. So again, it's a really good resource to just begin to get ideas of places that might interest you as they relate back to your skills, your strengths, interests, and values. Okay, and then here's a few other places from our Exploring Options and Career Fields databases. These are specific to the kinds of policy jobs that might interest you. In particular, if you're interested in politics and campaign work, I highly recommend Jobs That Are Left. Those are good campaign jobs that are being posted all the time. I've checked that the last couple of weeks, and opportunities continue to get posted doing campaign work. If you're interested in DC-based stuff, I highly recommend either Brad Traverse here or Tom Manitos here. They're the place to go for DC area opportunities. And again, I've been noticing lots of stuff posted on those websites. And then I'm not going to go too deeply into these because again, this is a kind of a larger resource you might consider for the future. Many of these fellowships have passed for this coming summer. But this is something, again, if you're a first year, sophomore, junior, you might think about down the road. I'm going to jump into a couple of other things and a little bit about how to organize the search. But I've just walked through a little bit about how to think about, or steps I'm encouraging you to take to figure out what kinds of things might interest you. A few resources and steps to figure out opportunities you can apply to now, and to help you develop a list of target organizations. Any questions about that? And while you're thinking about that, I'll ask, Tony asked a question. The Excel database contains the self-reported data of graduating seniors. Depending on the year, we usually get between an 80 and an 82% response rate. So it's a pretty good set of all that stuff. And it's mostly self-reported, but it's also augmented by us then going in and checking LinkedIn and some other publicly available resources to see what first things people found after graduation. 80 to 82% is high end of the range, but pretty consistent for postgraduate data for the Ivy Leagues. All right, I'm gonna keep going a little bit and talk a little bit about strategy. And again, this is a non-COVID-19 modified strategy because we've been hearing from employers and what we've been seeing what's posted. This is still a consistent approach that will benefit you. So looking at that same set of data we were just talking about, I asked the question of the people who helped us with this, what percentage of students find opportunities at employer hire only 1 or 2 Brown students, not the employers that are the big Teach for Americas or the Public Interest Network or even AmeriCorps, various AmeriCorps programs like City Year or College Advising Corps. And what we found was, again, consistent with what we hear anecdotally and hear back all the time. The vast majority of students who found first jobs post-graduation in nonprofit or government work got hired by an organization who hired 2 or less Brown students. And what that's communicating to you, or what you should interpret from that, is most of the employers who hire for nonprofit or government positions post-graduation are looking for 1 or 2 people to do the job. They don't have these big, huge programs where they're hiring cohorts of graduating seniors. They might not even And I would argue probably most of them don't even have just a, here's a position for a graduating senior. What they do have is work that graduating Brown students are really qualified to do. So this 95% to 91% that you see between 2012 and 2018, these are students who found positions where they could do the work, not positions that were targeted, formed, created for graduating seniors. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how most of them likely found those positions, again, based on the data and our experience. Does that make sense? Okay. So most jobs, most internships, most jobs never get listed anywhere. Stanford calls this the iceberg problem. And in there, I might have to actually get this. I've been doing this slideshow without actually getting it going. I'm not going to, again, hit all this stuff, but you can see it a little bit later. They call this they call it the iceberg problem because most of the stuff is hidden, and the way they want you to visualize identifying and finding opportunities, and the way I'm encouraging you to spend most of your time visualizing and finding opportunities right now, spring 2020, giving everything going on, is by talking to people who work in the field. So let's say this big circle right here is our policy jobs in DC. And there's you, you're trying to look for those policy jobs. I'm going to see if I can get the slideshow going real quick just to show you. Okay, people still seeing that? Anybody? Everybody? Okay. So if you looked on all of those websites that I suggested to you, Handshake, Brown Connect, Indeed, LinkedIn, Brad Traverse, jobs that are left, these are the policy jobs that you're seeing. They're the visible ones. They're the publicly visible ones. But what we're saying is there's a lot more out there. And there are a lot more that are happening, but they're hidden. The people who work in the field, they know about these jobs. They talk to each other. They used to meet up for happy hours in DC. Now they just do Zoom calls, but they still stay in touch. And they're talking to each other about projects they're working on, and they're aware of these opportunities. So your strategy could be to just apply on Handshake, just apply Brown Connect, just apply onto all the other places I looked. But when you're doing that, just keep in mind, this is what's happening. It's you competing with the world for those few visible opportunities. Now you should compete for those because, let's face it, you guys are really good candidates for these. So you want to get, you don't want to ignore those. But I also wouldn't want to turn my back on the 80% of other opportunities that are out there. That's why our recommendation is to, starting with your own network of faculty, family, friends, past professional connections, talk to people who are working in the field, because they can tell you about these opportunities that they're aware of. They can connect you with other people who work in the field, who can connect you to other people who work in the field. And now you're competing for these opportunities. You're able to apply for these opportunities. And sometimes, a little more than rarely, opportunities will be created because the alum or the person you talked with suddenly is faced with the opportunity of having a smart, connected, experienced Brown student or graduating senior who can help them solve a problem by doing a project or working on a job that they otherwise might not have filled, but they are filling because they have the right person in mind. So again, that's why our recommendation is to spend your time networking and spending 70% of your search time networking. Even in the spring of 2020, we've been doing one-on-one appointments for the last 5 weeks with students via Zoom. And we have continued to hear reported back to us that alumni are responding to informational interview requests. 2 or 3 out of 10 are responding. So we recommend continuing to chip away at that because all the indications are it's continuing to work. Real quick, 52,000 alum in Brown Connect. 1,756 of them have the word policy somewhere in their profiles. 83,000 students in alum and LinkedIn. 4,410 say they're skilled at public policy. There are a lot of people out there who are doing the kinds of things that interest you that you can reach out to. I have a link here for a tip sheet for our informational interviews for the kinds of questions you want to ask. And then down here are the questions that I like to say can lead to the actionable intelligence that can help you find the job or internship. Other organizations you want to look to in the field, other people you suggest other people that your contacts can suggest you talk to, and where organizations post their opportunities. So any questions or thoughts about that before I go a little bit further in terms of spending that much time networking in your search? Okay. 20% of the time applying, we still have our peer career advisors ready to help you with your application materials. Just email careerlab@brown.edu. A peer career advisor will email you back to set up a Zoom call to give you feedback. That includes resume, cover letter, LinkedIn profile, advice on networking, short mock interviews, all those things. And again, career counselors, you can make appointments and handshake with us. But I strongly recommend you reaching out and getting help from those folks. They're still, even though we're all remote, they're still ready to help you and still help you hone your application materials. And then 10% cold calling, that's the occasional time, only a little bit, where you find the perfect organization. Let's say you were really interested in political communications and you wanted to work for some big nonprofits, but you also wanted to, and you're a graduating senior and you wanted to also help those nonprofits with their communications needs, but you wanted to work for a for-profit company because you wanted to make a little bit more money. There's an organization called Fenton Communications that does exactly that kind of work. Feel free to email me afterwards if you wanted to chat about them a little bit. Let's just say you've targeted Fenton because you've heard about it from an alum. Now you've checked their website, Fenton Communications, they don't have any postings. You've checked LinkedIn, Indeed, the big search engines, they're not posting opportunities. You've looked for your own connections and you've looked for Brown alumni. Brown alumni have been through there in the past, but there's no Brown alumni there right now. You might just call Fenton Communications. Hi, I'm a Brown junior with excellent communications research skills, interested in human rights. Is there someone there I can talk to about internship opportunities? We only recommend doing that a little bit. We hear stories every year of this working effectively, but most of your time, the networking, the applying, and just a little bit of cold calling when you find the perfect organization, but you can't find any other way in to apply. And then just a final note, this is in normal years. So just so you get a sense, this is when students who chose first jobs with nonprofit or government employers accepted their positions in each of these 5 years. And you can see it's pretty consistent. Most people don't accept their things to spring. I'm going to modify this, and I'm hoping in a few weeks, because I looked at the data and I found that if you then extend this to the summer of the seniors graduating year, the number for summer will still be higher than the number for fall. So most students, and this is going back to that chart I was showing you about how most of the employers who hire students to work in nonprofit and government roles aren't hiring cohorts of graduating seniors. They're just hiring people who can fill the 1 or 2 positions they have available. By nature, those positions can't mostly get filled until you are available, and you aren't really available until like a month, to accept a position, if they're just filling a position as needed, until just a few weeks or a month before you graduate. So that's why for these kinds of jobs, consistently, students get these jobs post-graduation very near, right at, or within a few months after graduation. And that's in a normal year. Again, I'm going to show you some data and some info that shows employers are still posting things right now. But even in a normal year, this stuff would just be happening right now. So keep that in mind as you go forward. if you don't have an offer yet, you're not really behind even in a normal year. And then this is just a page to our resources. I'm going to talk now about some data we have about what's going on spring of 2020 and steps to take. But before I jump into that, any questions about the general job search, networking, 70-20-10, and ways to move forward? Okay. So big question I'm hearing from students, what are employers doing now? Bella asks, how do you spell Fenton Communications? Exactly how you spelled it in the chat. You nailed it. Great organization. So here's how we're sharing what we know. First, we're our employer relations team is talking to employers every day, the employers who recruit at Brown. I've included links here to our newsletter archives and how to sign up for the newsletter. As we're hearing from those employers, we're sharing what we're hearing about virtual opportunities they're coming up with, recruitment they're planning. We're including that stuff in the newsletter so you can keep up to date on what we, the Career Lab staff, are hearing about employers who recruit at Brown in that letter. In addition, we have a COVID-19 FAQ on the Career Lab website. We're going to continue to update that as we get more information and hear more information. This is a quick survey from the National Association of Colleges and Employers. It shows you how fast things are changing. When we first left campus and started doing virtual meetings, March 19th, 90% of employers still weren't making any changes. But by early April, only 35% of employers were moving forward with their job and internship plans. So that dropped dramatically. You can see the number of employers planning virtual internships rose from 2.4% to 29%. But you can see there's still a bunch of employers not revoking full-time or internship offers for sure. And only and still another chunk who are considering that, but not doing it yet. So a lot of stuff is still, sorry, let me be more clear. A lot might be wrong. Many employers are still recruiting and still looking for opportunities. And again, I'm going to show you a way to check on that for employers that interest you. But keep in mind, stuff is still happening, but it's changing quickly. That's why I strongly advise you getting in touch with a counselor and keeping in touch with us and keeping in touch with these resources so you can hear what we're hearing as we hear it. We also, because we know that students want something broader than just the employers who are recruiting at Brown. So there's a few crowdsourced list of internships and job statuses for major companies. We can't verify all of this stuff, but it's consistent enough with what we're hearing from our employers that we felt like these three sources we're sharing with you, the stuff from the Candor website, a summer internship 2020 Facebook page where people are sharing information in GitHub, that it can give you some broad strokes about what's happening in the industry. So our advice as far as the to-dos, if you've been engaged with an employer at this point, and by engaged, I mean you've had at least a first round interview, get in touch with them, stay in touch with them. Even if they, yes, get in touch with them and stay in touch with them and find out what's going on. You wanna keep the lines of communication open, because as you saw from that survey that I linked to on the previous page, things are changing for our employers. Keep in touch, be patient with them, because they're also trying to struggle and figure out what's going on. But keep in touch with the ones you've already engaged with. Going forward, most people, our experience is most students tend to search by deadlines because they want to not miss a deadline. We want you to search by date posted on whatever search engine you're using. I've got a couple numbers here from Handshake and Brown Connect, but whether it's LinkedIn, Indeed, Idealist, other search engines, search by date posted. And I give you a sense here from March 27th, when it was pretty clear what's going to be happening this summer and how things might shake out through April 8th, you can see the number of opportunities that were continuing to be posted. And then again, I pulled out the numbers for policy internships that were posted, internships that had the word policy in them on Brown and Connect on or after March 24th, nonprofit jobs and Handshake. Even in the midst of all this, even as the data was coming in, it was clear what the summer was going to look like for a lot of these employers. They're continuing to post opportunities. So to find opportunities that we feel like are more likely to go forward as planned because the employer still posted them very late in the game here, go by date posted as opposed to deadline. But of course, always check your target employer's website and feel free, if you can, to find recruiters from the employers you're targeting on LinkedIn. Any questions about that? All right, as you saw, a lot of employers, the number went from about 2% to about 30% in the NACE survey, are considering all or part of their internships virtual. I know our Careers in the Common Good Summer New York City employers, about 2/3 of them are doing at least part of their internship virtual, and another third are just doing it all virtual. So we think most employers will be the ones raising this, be the ones including this in a conversation, but you might want to consider suggesting to some of the employers you're in touch with that you're able to do that if you're able to do that. Here's some guidelines you can review later for getting the most out of a virtual internship. Highly recommend, as with all this stuff, everybody's coming from a different place, everybody's in a different situation as far as their ability and their desire to do virtual stuff. Make an appointment with a counselor to talk this over if you're considering this, to make sure you're asking the right questions, both of yourself and the employer, before you're committing to doing stuff virtually. But here's a couple of to-dos. Search by remote or virtual. There's only a couple of websites that currently, and by currently I mean as in the last 48 hours, had as one of the search terms, one of the search boxes you could click, remote. Idealist has a remote box you can click when you're doing a search to see, to see remote or virtual internships. But because this is exploding so rapidly, most of the search engines haven't gotten that set up yet. So just search by the keywords remote or the keywords virtual to look for opportunities that were remote or virtual, if that's what you're going to be looking at this summer. And then there's several other websites here, both search engines and databases with opportunities to look for both short-term internships, virtual internships, and even some freelance opportunities. So I strongly urge you to take a look at those. These are not policy specific, these websites here. They're a little bit broader. Strongly recommend them to jump in. Talked a little bit about networking already. I just want to say two quick things. When you're reaching out to Brown alumni, acknowledge what's going on in the world. Again, we've been hearing back really consistently that 2 or 3 out of 10 people are continuing to get back to people about their requests. So strongly urge you to continue to do that. But a short note like the one I suggested here, just to acknowledge what's going on in the world. You don't have to use this language. Trust yourself. Just, you know, be human and authentic, and it'll work. But I know sometimes people like a template to work off of, so I included that a little bit there. And then know what success looks like. I think it's not unusual that an alum might in the past have said, hey, I'm happy to send your resume around or make a recommendation or flag your resume. That might not be, that's not the definition of success, or it might not be the definition of success in these times. It might be more like, wow, that was a great conversation. I can tell you really care about this human rights work and you've gotten some excellent experiences that would make you a good candidate. This was really great talking to you. How about you and I check back in a month or two when we have a clearer idea of the summer or the next coming months, and see what's going on, and we can see how we might be able to, you know, do some stuff together. So just know that's not an alum who's pushing you off, but that might be the definition of success for some of these informational interviews right now. And finally, A few things you can do if you're not able to identify a summer opportunity. One of the key things I would consider doing is going back through the job opportunities, the job listings, the things that you've been applying for, looking for gaps in your skills that the skills that those employers are asking for and the things that you have, and then look for opportunities to build those skills. LinkedIn Learning offers lots of classes that can help you with that. If you just want to kind of get a sense of what I mean by building career ready skills, you can click the link here under personal learning and projects. Our colleagues at Brandeis have put together a list of some of the key career ready skills that you might want to try to build through online classes or other means, and even suggested some of the classes that you might want to look into. So I strongly urge that. Again, employers are going to know what was happening spring and summer of 2020. It's okay to not have something this summer. It's even okay to not do this stuff this summer if you're just not in a place where you can. But if you are able to and you're ready to, these are the things that you can do that will enhance your qualifications, enhance your chances of landing something down the road. And then I strongly recommend career search books. Going all the way back to the beginning of the workshop, figuring out yourself, figuring out your strengths, interests, values, needs, the things that you're looking for in an opportunity is one of the key things in all the search, and one of the things that makes the search more efficient. You can do that with an appointment with a counselor, but these are also some of my favorite books. Designing Your Life is using design principles in the job and internship search. Strengths Finder helps you figure out which strengths you have, and that can be instructive into finding the right workplaces for you. And then even the 2-hour job search, I find really useful for people who have already figured out a path, a kind of thing they want to do. The approach there can be really effective and helpful. So those are just a few books I recommend. All right, that was a lot. Again, I covered just in normal times and just looking at the data from 2012 to 2018, what makes the most sense and how you want to go about the job and internship search. And then I've added in a few steps you can take and shown you some data that indicates things are still happening in the policy and nonprofit world for opportunities. So if you're ready to engage, you can engage, and then giving you a couple of tips, especially the date posted tip, that can help you be a little bit more efficient by spending most of your time focusing on opportunities that were posted in the last few weeks when employers had a better idea of what's going on. I'm done with that part. And then Tony, I thought you had a little bit you wanted to share before we ask for questions?
Yeah. I mean, I guess I'll share some family stories. My daughter just graduated from the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine this fall, and it was looking for jobs in London, is looking for a job in London this spring, and is in a similar situation. The job market and the internship temporarily froze over completely, but it is now coming back. And what Jim said about a lot of people are still looking and a lot of people are moving to remoteness pretty seamlessly, seems true there as well. And at least in the public health, social justice space, it's pretty obvious that the unwinding or the opening up of the economy after we flatten the curve, as it were, is going to create a need for an army of people to figure out how to do social distancing in places as we open up. And that's going to require data collection, interfacing with community organizations, healthcare organizations, looking at outcomes. So there's just going to be a huge political organization of that at the local government level, the public health level. It is going to create a huge demand for intelligent and engaged analysis, all of which you guys are very equipped for. And I mean, that's going to come online. There's a wave of that coming. So in some ways, that's just a particular space that we know there's going to be demand in, that the demand will probably come in 3 or 4 months. Whether that gives you license to not want to do it now or not, that's up to you. But I think I don't think you guys have to be terrified that this is going to close down your opportunities for engagement and policy work. Quite the contrary, I think, and maybe unlike the previous recession. I just wanted to put that out there, and also to thank Jim for this. This is a really excellent talk that I will send out to all policy concentrators, and I think would be great if got around through Watson more generally. But that's what I wanted to put in, and if people have questions or want to talk more, please feel free to chat, or maybe we can even try unmuting the mics.
Sure. I think we need Melissa to do that though. Oh, wait,
You're the host, I think.
People should be able to unmute themselves if they want to talk as well.
Okay. You don't have to talk. Nobody has to talk. Questions, but if there are any. And if not, thank you for coming. And Jim, again, thank you for such a good talk, and keep well.
Sure thing. And I guess my last, somebody raised their hands.
Yeah.
Just to say thank you.
Okay.
Oh, you're welcome. I am confident the general advice I have given here is accurate and useful, but I also know this is a very individual thing, people coming from different places. I can't encourage enough, make an appointment with me or one of the counselors, and we can really walk you through, have you kind of brief us on where you're at currently in the search, the kinds of things, and we can provide you with a game plan and some guidance to jump in if you're ready to do that. So strongly encourage an appointment, and thanks for inviting me to do this. I really appreciate it.